What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel. Week 11, another busy week in the month of November. A lot of big games on the slate. There were some upsets, not where you think they would be, and there are a lot of takeaways that I have from this week. There are a lot of takeaways that you could take away from this week, but these are my top 5 takeaways from week 11 of the college football season. We are coming right down the home stretch. Still a lot of important games left to go on the slate. It's going to be a very, very exciting race to the finish this college football season. But before we dive on into my top 5 takeaways, I just got to say thank you for the support the channel has seen as of late. It does mean a lot to me. And if you guys want to continue to help show your support, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell. That's the biggest way to help support me. But another big way is what you're doing right now, just simply by watching the video. And really anything you can do to help interact with the channel helps to support it. So liking, commenting, sharing, checking out the community tab, and really anything else that you guys do to help interact with the channel does mean a lot to me. So with all of that said and done, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead, talk about Week 11, another big week in the college football season. You guys know I like to give the Group of 5 love here on this channel. That's exactly what we're doing with my number 5 takeaway, and that is the fact that I believe the Group of 5 champion, with all the results that happened here this past week, will once again reside within the American Athletics. So if you don't really pay attention too much to the Group of 5, let me catch you up to speed. Air Force, even though they lost to Navy or Army, my apologies, even though they lost to Army, was still a school that was going to be in contention to receive that Group of 5 spot to go to a New Year's Six bowl game. They just lost to Hawaii this past week. Okay, so you're thinking about another Mountain West team. What about Fresno State? They just lost to San Jose State this past week, and every team that was towards the top of the rankings in the American Athletic took care of business. And there are still a lot of big games to come in the American Athletic. Tulane, even though they've kind of needed a little bit of magic to happen, they have been able to survive through their past couple of weeks. They were able to barely get by Tulsa, and right now are the front runners to receive that Group of 5 spot. But there are 3 other teams in the American Athletic that currently, I believe, have shots to get into a New Year's Six bowl game. That's the Memphis Tigers. They were able to take care of business against Charlotte. Did need overtime to do it, but they got past Charlotte. The SMU Mustangs, they beat North Texas pretty handedly this past Friday. And then UTSA, who went and beat Rice. UTSA and SMU still undefeated in conference play. Memphis with the 1 loss to the Tulane Green Wave. Now, Memphis and SMU will play this week, and then Tulane and UTSA will play in the final week of the season. And the carousel there to try to get in to the conference championship game is definitely going to be one to watch. Now, again, should you count out Fresno State? No, not at all. Should you count out Air Force? Probably not, and there still are some other teams, especially in the Mid-American Conference, like Toledo, Miami of Ohio, and some other teams around the nation. Maybe even a team like Liberty that resides undefeated. If James Madison gets this waiver approved, they could still be a team that you could see get into a New Year's Six bowl game. But until all of that happens, I do fully believe that as it currently sits right now, and from what I saw this past week and throughout the season, the American Athletic once again will have the Group of 5 champion. In all likelihood, as of right now, it is the Tulane Green Wave, but there are other teams that can make a run towards getting into a New Year's Six bowl game. So let's go ahead, dive on into my number 4 takeaway, which is the fact that, look, November is seeing a lot of upsets. However, they are not really where a lot of chaos-loving college football fans would like them to be. They're not really at the top. So if you go back to not this past weekend, but the weekend before, this weekend of Saturday, November 4th, there were some upsets that week. I mean, you had Oklahoma State beat Oklahoma. That was an upset toward the top there, right? You had Clemson beat Notre Dame. Okay, that was an upset, but not really towards the top. You had Arizona beat UCLA. Same kind of thing, an upset, but not towards the top. And then Army beating Air Force, again, an upset, but not towards the top. And then this past week, you did have some really crucial upsets. Coincidentally, they both ended up happening within the Big 12 Conference, but you did have Texas Tech go and beat the number 16 team in the country on the road in the Kansas Jayhawks. They ended up going down, or I should say Jason Bean ended up going down in that game, helped Texas Tech go to win that one. And then the team right above, Kansas and Oklahoma State, just got absolutely curb stomped by UCF in the Space Unis. Love the uniforms, by the way, for UCF, but they went and they absolutely just hammered Oklahoma State. And I mean, you continue to go down the line. Colorado was almost able to pull off an upset against Arizona. Tulsa almost able to pull off an upset against Tulane. Duke almost able to pull off an upset against North Carolina. Failed the 2-point conversion there. So we are seeing the upsets happen, but there is not that top tier chaos. There is not that upset right now that has absolutely wrecked the college football playoff picture. Sure, the Oklahoma State win this past, or not this past weekend, but the weekend prior in Bedlam to Oklahoma definitely eliminated one team from the college football playoff conversation, but it did not create chaos. And then even Georgia beating Missouri, again, not an upset at all. And we're going to talk more about Georgia here later. There's just not a whole lot of upsets happening because what a lot of these top teams are doing is the survive and advance mentality, right? That is the thing I talked about, I believe, back in my week 9 takeaways is now that you're entering November, yes, you still want to look good, but at the very least, all you need to do is survive and advance to stay alive in the hunt for the college football playoff. And that is exactly what a lot of college football playoff contenders did this past week. Take, for instance, the Louisville Cardinals on Thursday. You probably saw that game and saw that Virginia was up, what was the score, 24-17, and you were like, oh no, Louisville could lose this one. Could we see the big upset happen? And nope. Louisville was able to pull that one out, survive and advance. Washington, boy, that defense probably gave a lot of Huskies fans heart attacks there throughout that first half. It buckled up, and the Huskies were able to survive. Crazy plays there with the pick six being ran back. Utah recovered it, and then the next play, Washington ended up forcing a safety to make it a touchdown game. Washington inevitably was able to seal the deal there. Miami definitely gave Florida State a lot of troubles, but the Seminoles able to pull away. I believe had a 14-point advantage. Miami came back, made it a little bit closer, but Florida State able to fend off the Hurricanes. And then Texas was up big. You saw Jonathan Brooks go down, an absolutely devastating injury to that team. He tore his ACL. He's going to be out for the remainder of the season, which is absolutely not what you want to see from this Texas Longhorn team that's still a player in the college football playoff race, especially because TCU, boy, they made this thing interesting late, but Texas was able to hold on. They were able to win 29-26. So the survive and advance mentality. You're going to need to see the college football playoff contenders get into that mentality throughout the final 2 weeks of the season as well. More likely than not, the top 9 teams in the College Football Playoff Committee's rankings, so at least in order as they stand right now: Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, Washington, Oregon, Texas, Alabama. Those are the top 8, and then you look at Louisville as a team that technically is still alive in the College Football Playoff conversation. Probably going to need a lot to have happen, but Louisville is still alive as a team that could potentially get into the college football playoff. So again, the upsets are coming, and the upsets are there. And then even this week as well. Again, I've already mentioned UCF there and Texas Tech. Florida, again, almost pulled one off against LSU, and I've mentioned some others that almost got pulled off this week as well. If you want to go ahead and take a look to next week to maybe see where the potential upsets could happen, it'd be a very Oregon thing to do, to go on the road in Tempe and lose to a 3-7 Arizona State team in November. We've heard that story with Arizona State before. Michigan has to go on the road to play Maryland this week. That's going to be a tricky spot as well. Louisville on the road to play Miami. That is going to be a very tricky spot there as well. Georgia on the road at Tennessee. Definitely a very interesting game. And then Washington on the road against Oregon State. Even a game like Texas going on the road to play Iowa State, not going to be an easy one there either. So there are a lot of chances this upcoming week for the upsets to really wreak havoc, and the upset, or not wreak havoc, wreak havoc, my apologies, for the upsets to wreak havoc, and for this college football playoff season to really start delving into a lot of chaos. But the contenders are doing a very nice job at just not necessarily buying into the survive and advance mentality, because obviously every team is going to play the best that they can, but being able to do what they need to do to be able to come out with wins in November, and in some cases against very quality opponents. Florida State beat an above 500 Miami team, and Washington just beat a ranked Utah team, and then TCU, not terrible in their own right either. So let's move on to number 2 here, and we're going to talk about the Georgia Bulldogs, because boy, if you did not watch that game against Ole Miss, honestly wouldn't have blamed you if you turned this thing off at halftime because it was over. And Georgia is back to absolutely dominating teams. Absolutely dominating. This game was not even close. From start, well, okay, that's a lie. At the start, it kind of did look like Ole Miss was going to hang around, right? And then Georgia quickly put the hammer down. This was a Georgia team that in that second half, I mean, they held Ole Miss to only 3 points. I'm not sure of the yard total there in the second half. Wouldn't be surprised if it was under 200, under 100, whatever it was. Ole Miss was able to get 352 yards of total offense, including 179 yards on the ground. But this Georgia secondary played really, really well. This was a Georgia team, especially offensively, that just went out and dominated. Let me read you some stats here from this game. Carson Beck, 18 of 25, 306 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick. Kendall Milton and Dejan Edwards had 2 touchdowns apiece. Ladd McConkey, Dominic Lovett, Ra Thomas, and then they got Brock Bowers back in this game as well. He only had 3 catches for 34 yards, but hey, did have a touchdown in there as well. Georgia looks as dangerous as any team across the entire country right now. They are fully back to looking like its dominant self. Now, yes, you played really, really well against Missouri at times, but there were some things that you definitely could have improved upon, and everything got improved upon during this game here against the Ole Miss Rebels. Now, you do have to go on the road to play Tennessee next. Tennessee just got absolutely curb stomped by a team that Georgia's already beat in Missouri. So how much of a challenge is that game going to be? I'll leave that for you guys to decide. But I mean, whenever you have to play a game in Neyland Stadium, that's definitely going to be a tough environment for Georgia to play in. So when you take a look at this Georgia team, offensively, this team was just clicking on all cylinders. Defensively, you were able to force 2 sacks, 5 tackles for loss. But again, second half, you just absolutely went out and dominated. Not in abundance of sacks, not in abundance of turnovers, just pure physical domination. That is what the Georgia Bulldogs did to Ole Miss this past weekend. And look, you got Tennessee, Georgia Tech, and then Alabama in the SEC championship game coming up here. Of course, that Alabama game is definitely going to be their biggest test of the season. Don't discount what Tennessee may be able to do against this Georgia team. That could definitely prove to be a very, very interesting game. But moving forward here, I mean, Georgia's back to dominating teams. But my number one takeaway here, guys, from this week was the fact that Michigan and Ohio State have now separated themselves, especially Michigan, in the Big Ten Conference. We all were keyed in to this Big Ten round robin between Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State. And Ohio State was able to win round 1. They were able to stay at home in Columbus, big noon kickoff, and they were able to beat the Penn State Nittany Lions. Michigan just did the same thing this past week. You see a very, very emotional coach there for Michigan. The name is escaping my mind, so I apologize to Wolverine fans everywhere, with Blake Corum. He was pretty bloodied after the game, but I mean, this was a... Okay, so before we talk about the takeaways that I have for Michigan, the takeaway that I have for Penn State is that still they're a tier below Michigan and Ohio State. It's a Penn State team that has a really good defense, that has a lot of good pieces on offense, but the offense is flawed because it can't move the ball downfield at an explosive enough rate to be able to get by the defenses of Michigan and Ohio State. And we have seen now with Michigan, with Ohio State, that even though they may not generate these 70-yard absolute bombs that a lot of other really good offensive teams do, they can get the chunk yardage plays to be able to beat really, really good defenses. That's the way Michigan was able to go out and beat Penn State. On top of defensive physicality, same thing that Ohio State did to Penn State, defensive physicality, and then being able to get those chunk yardage plays. Ohio State dominated Michigan State in their past game. So the bigger takeaway here is that Michigan, absolutely, and the scoreboard might not show the scoreboard a little closer than what this game actually probably should have been, but Michigan did go and dominate Penn State pretty much here in this game. I mean, taking a look at just the team stats here, let me let me reset myself. Looking at the team stats in this game, Michigan did not outgain Penn State by that much, but the thing that Michigan was able to do was run the ball really, really well. And I think a big thing that showed the scoreboard at 24-15 was the way that Donovan Edwards was really able to wake up here in this game. I'll get his stat line for you here in a minute. 10 carries for 52 yards and 1 touchdown, including a 22-yard run. Donovan Edwards waking up here, 5.2 yards per carry, really, really helped this team. J.J. McCarthy only threw the ball 8 times, but it was fairly windy and rainy there in Happy Valley. But make no mistake, whether both of these teams win, both of these teams lose this next week, or any combination of the sort, Ohio State and Michigan, everything is on the line. The Big Ten East title, a berth to the Big Ten Championship, in all likelihood a Big Ten Championship given the current state of the Big Ten West, and ultimately a spot in the college football playoff. It is going to be electric. The big house is going to be rocking. Even though Jim Harbaugh will not be on the sidelines for that game, that's going to be the biggest game of the college football season, and I just want November 25th to be here right now. But guys, that's going to do it here for all my takeaways. If you have anything else, let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye. Top 25 out later today.